Hello, everyone out there. Listen, I just want to come to you and just give you a little snippet of what I have to say about voting. Now, what has happened in this country lately? Monumental. And it's causing us to take pause. For example, what happened with George Floyd? That tended to make us take a pause and wonder why. What's going on? Those were monumental moments in this country for us that will drive us to the polls quicker than anything, or won't it? Now, there are many of you that are watching this broadcast and you probably feel like, well, Ella, why should I vote? Why should I care? Why should I be a part of this process? They're going to elect who they want. They're going to do what they want. It won't matter. None of them cares about us anyway. You know, come on, some of you have said a lot of those same things. You know, they're both racist. Neither one of them are going to do anything for the black community. Haven't you said it? Come on, be real. But listen, what is happening in this country is monumental. And yes, the moments that we've marched, the moments that we've stood up for what's right, especially after the killing of George. As a matter of fact, the revolution was televised. Yes, it was. And we had so many Americans that came together for that cause. Caucasians, African Americans, Asian Americans, you name it, Hispanics, everyone came together for that cause because of what happened to George Floyd. That was awesome. That was wonderful. And we'll talk about it for a while. However, that's not enough. That's not enough. If we want things to change, we have to get our souls to the polls. We have to vote. We have to vote. We have to make our voice really count. That's how we do it. We have to get to the polls. Now, one thing that we have experienced, it's true. We're experiencing voter suppression. We're seeing it. Now, if you are old school and you're familiar with how things were back in the 60s, you're aware that those are the same things that took place back then. Voter suppression, you know, doing whatever they could to keep us from voting. Poll taxes, whether it was fraud, intimidation, you name it, literacy tests. These are the things that the people, our ancestors, had to deal with just to give you the right to vote. Do you know what all went into this? When they say, go out and vote, go out and vote. You know, you have the right. We fought for the right. And nobody really tells you what happened. Well, I'm going to do that tonight. In the Ella Johnson Show, I'm going to break it down for you, tell you exactly why people are encouraging you and employing you to get to the polls. Let me tell you why. In 1868, the 14th Amendment granted you citizenship. Yes, wonderful, awesome. Well, one of the things that weren't included was your right to vote. They're like, okay, we're going to give it to you little by little. And that's exactly what happened. You had your citizenship, but it didn't necessarily grant you the right to vote. So that meant that some more things had to happen. So in 1870, Congress passed the 15th Amendment. That was awesome. That gave us the right to vote. But would you be surprised if I told you that that wasn't enough to keep them from trying to stop us from voting anyway? Oh yeah, we had a law in the book and everything. The 15th Amendment granted us the right to vote. But the states still found a way to get around it. With these literacy tests, with this intimidation, fraudulent stuff, all of this stuff that I'm saying, doesn't it sound kind of familiar with what's going on today? The poll tax, I know right here in Florida, you know, they brought the poll tax out so that it would keep these ex-felons from being able to vote. It's like, okay, all right, you guys are out, well, we got to find another way. And they did. They went way back. You know, they went way back in the old playbook in the 60s and pulled out the poll taxes. Okay? So I want you guys to understand what's happening. What's happening is that your vote is so powerful that they're trying to keep you from it. And why would you let them? There's just some things I want us to think about. Number one, now that we've gotten that out of the way, now that you understand why it's so important for you to vote, let's talk a little bit about who you're going to vote for. Now, on this broadcast, I will never do that because I don't want to be part of the system that handles you that way. I want to trust you that you will do your homework and that you will realize who the best person is for you in your life. I'm not bashing anyone who votes for Trump. I'm not bashing people that vote for Biden. What I'm saying is exercise your right. At least be a part of the change. Okay? Because a lot of you that are out there and you're going to whine about this, you're going to whine about that, and you don't vote. There's so many people coming out now who've never voted their entire life. Okay, well, let's get past that. It's this year. It's 2020. Wouldn't you say that this election is so important? Now, there's some things I want to talk about that I keep hearing come up in this election when it comes to our vote, the black vote, because apparently the black vote is so important to these politicians. It's funny how nobody really, care about what we have to say until it's election time. But we need to use that to our advantage. So what I'm hearing a lot of, and I know a lot of you are, you're hearing a lot of, well, Trump says that he's done more for the black community than any other president. Okay? Now, take pause for a second. Think about that. Donald J. Trump is saying that he personally has done more for the black community than any other president. Now, let's talk about that. Because this comes up every time we talk about systemic racism. We don't talk about the George Floyd. We don't talk about police brutality. We don't talk about inequality in home ownership, inequality in job pay. We don't talk about any of that stuff. We just automatically run to, I've done more. Now, this platinum plan is out there on the table as part of Trump's plan for the black community. But why doesn't he brag about it in the debates? I thought about that the other night. I said, it's funny to me because if this is something that he has worked so hard for the black community, why isn't he bragging about it? Why? I would bring that up. Listen, I have this, I have that. First of all, I take pause with it because I'm like, okay, well, why did it take an election for you to come up with this platinum plan? Why didn't we have it for the last 4 years? Rights Act, 1965. Civil Rights Act, 1964. Those are monumental things in the blacks for us to be able to have equality on jobs, not being discriminated against, being able to vote, having the right to vote just like everyone else. Those are awesome accomplishments for the black community. What has Trump done to trump that? I'm just saying. I'm asking. What has he done for the black community that's better than that? Here's something I want you guys to think about. Because I get into a lot of different debates, if you will, on Facebook with different people. And I voice my opinion about how I feel about this election and what's being said. I have an issue with that statement, saying that you've done more for the black community than any other person. Personally, I'm offended with that statement. So let's talk about the statement that Trump makes, that he has done more for the black community than any other president. Come on, I know you guys have heard it because he speaks about it every chance he gets, right? Whenever the whole thing about black comes up, I know he's been conditioned. You just go to that. Just go to that statement and just stay there. Don't start getting involved within this racism and any of that stuff. Just make that statement. He's done more for the black community than any other president. Well, wouldn't you say that the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was pretty good for black people? Wouldn't you say that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was pretty good for black people? So what has Trump done that's comparable to those things? What? I would love to know that. What has he done that's comparable to either one of those things? Here's what I want to say to everyone listening to this broadcast. We always say, well, who else has done anything for the blacks? Why has anybody else done for the blacks? He's done more for the blacks than anybody else. Do you hear white people saying he's done more for the whites than any other president? He's done more for the whites than you don't hear that, right? Why don't they say that? Why don't we hear that? Why is it just the blacks? Here's what I propose to Black American, anyone that listens to that statement and don't know what to think. Let me help you out. Here's the thing. When what Trump does for the blacks equals what he's done for the whites, that's something to brag about. Think about that. We are so quick to give him a pat on the back for giving us a crumb. right? Why are we so quick to do that? I'm offended by that. The least you can do, if there's one thing that you can do for the black community, Donald J. Trump, make us equal. How about that? So here's the thing. For those of you who have already voted, thank you. Thank you so much for your service. Thank you for being an awesome American. Now, for those of you that are sitting out there and you're straddle the fence, and you're like, I don't know if I want to vote. Don't think about that. Don't contemplate that at all. You need to vote. Your vote is your voice. Do you want to walk around without a voice? That's just not normal, right? So if you want to matter, you have to vote to do that. If you want to change, you have to vote to do that. Don't get caught up in all of this stuff, thinking it's cool not to vote. Don't get caught up in this thing of thinking, well, it doesn't matter. It does matter. Be a part of the solution by voting on November 3rd. Cast your ballot. Think about that lamp that's sitting on the table. It can only be effective when it's plugged into a power source. Thank you for listening. See you next time on another snippet from the Ella Johnson Show.